Welcome to the Hasn't Been 3 Days podcast with your hosts Justin and BJ, where we talk about 3-day-old news, sports, and whatever else we want to talk about and care about, because it's our podcast. You, the MVP listener, get to listen in, you get to laugh, you get to hate on our takes and opinions, but just don't let us know about them unless it's been 3 days. So we want to recap. We are not influencers. We say this every week. Justin, I'm so glad I'm not an influencer. Let me just say that.
I don't want my DMs to be blowing up.
Yeah. We still haven't published the email address to the show, which is fine. So we're not influencers, but we are impressionists, as I keep saying, and our impressions are up again. 1,006 impressions over the last 30 days. We have a breakdown of 46.2% males, and get this, it's up from last week, 46.2% females as well. So it is a straight neck and neck, not 50-50. Some of them are still unidentified, and that's okay. But 46.2, 46.2, it's a dead heat, males and females that listen to our show. And we have a very special show for our female listeners and our male listeners that need to be shown some stuff. I mean, they need to be put in their place. So
they need to be put in the place. And I have a feeling, I got this odd feeling that we might be put in our place today.
It wouldn't be the first time, and probably not the first time today even. So.
I've been married 23 years, so I know my place, I guess. So.
Yeah. Well, it's been a little bit since we've talked. Let's. I'll start if that's all right with you.
Yeah.
Didn't have a whole lot going on this weekend. Just had a pretty quiet weekend, and I just didn't do a whole lot. I watched a little bit of football and just I did adulting things, which is not real fun. So
like grocery stores.
Yep. All this stuff.
Buy new underwear and socks.
I didn't do that. I did wash some though. So that's part of that too. But yeah, it was pretty laid back, pretty chill. But I did get to see people I love and care about. And so I love that part of my weekend every weekend. So how about you?
Yeah, pretty eventful weekend. Friday night, my daughter and I, we went to an art show. I have an acquaintance that I've gotten to know through the hospital. That she's an artist, and so I see her every week because she works for a company that takes care of all of my my plants in my office because I would kill them.
Mm-hmm.
And so she works for the company that takes care of all of our plants through all of our properties for the hospital. And I just got to know her and befriended her. And she's an artist. And my daughter's really into art. So we go to her like monthly art shows and different things. So she invited us to come to one that she had a bunch of her stuff on exhibit. And so we went and experienced that for a little bit. Kind of a different crowd. I'm not an artist, so my daughter enjoys it, and it's cool to give my daughter an outside, influence to see that when she's frustrated about her artwork, that art's not perfect. You can just do whatever you want. Yeah. So we try to do that every Friday. They call it First Fridays of each month, so we do that. And then Saturday is a busy travel day. We traveled for a nephew's birthday party, so got to drive 2 hours, go to a birthday party for 2 hours, and back on the road for 2 hours. So pretty quick turnaround. Had to watch the Husker game on a phone, which was different for me.
Hey, so did I.
Yeah. So yeah, I haven't bought any of that TV with Fox Sports on it yet. And then Sunday, I've got to sit around and watch sports, and got to watch volleyball. And me and my wife enjoy watching Husker volleyball as much as I watch Husker football. I'll watch Husker volleyball, and my daughter is interested in volleyball too. So whenever she wants to hang out with mom and dad, she'll watch it with us. But so we watch the Huskers play, and they're a pretty good team. Really good team, and which kind of brings me into something. Before we bring on Dia for our interview, I saw this thing about Husker volleyball. It was after I watched the game. Nebraska, and we're going to be talking about Dia about women's sports and WNBA and kind of in the Midwest. Nebraska did this Nebraska Day volleyball, and they had like 92,000 people come watch a volleyball match in a football stadium outside. And somebody had posted that Nebraska volleyball for women's sports, and they're revenue generating at the university, which is kind of unheard of, for volleyball at least. But they've, since 2015, Nebraska volleyball, highest attended matches or events, Nebraska has been a part of every single one of them. Every single one of them. It is crazy when I saw that. A biased person in myself watching Husker volleyball, and you've been around Nebraska fandom, right? We don't have anything else in Nebraska, right? So we got to find something else to go on. But man, that is a testament to, and a lot of these big time events have been recent, with the growth of women's sports and stuff like that. So,
well, and I think it's also a testament to the culture. And it's, you talk about Husker football has not been a winning football program in a long time, which has been the greatest driving sport in the state of Nebraska, because there is no professional sports. And so that's what's been so disappointing for Husker fans is that one place that's been their God, lowercase g, for so long. But then Husker volleyball has had a culture of winning for decades now under Coach Cook, and that's huge. And so it continues to grow. It's no surprise. It's no surprise at all. And when you see the coaching, I saw the video of Danny Busboom for coach of Louisville, and do a whole deal for Coach Cook and all that stuff. But I have I can't say that on the show, but she was somebody that we watched in high school play in Nebraska. And so what an incredible story there, that his players become coaches and now are coaching at top level programs as well. It's just a culture thing. And that's an awesome thing to be a part of.
Yeah. And the platform they're getting now, they're getting national, that match that you're talking about, or they played Louisville this year, and that was on national ABC, which is something that hasn't happened until the last 2 years for women's sports. And selfishly, and a biased person, I've seen Nebraska volleyball be a product of that and help that because of their success. So it's been kind of fun at the same time. But enough about that. We have an exciting interview today. I am so looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to being put in my place. Like, I'm gonna own up to it. I might start crying. I don't know. Well, we'll see.
It is really cool. Again, you have that connection with your wife and with your daughter. We talk about that with my daughter, those things that we can connect with them, whether it's sports, whether it's life, and all of these things. And so it's really cool for us we're very privileged and honored to have a true guest that has some notoriety to her name and her job. So she has been willing to come on the show tonight, and so we're going to bring her on and talk to her for a little bit. Well, we get a very special opportunity tonight to interview somebody with influence way bigger than ours, and we're so thankful for the opportunity to talk to Dia Miller tonight, who is a photographer for the LA Sparks, and we're excited to welcome her to the Hasn't Been 3 Days podcast. And we had some takes about the WNBA a few weeks ago, and just women's sports and all of that. And you were handed our podcast, Dia, and were given an opportunity to respond. And I'm glad you did. And so we wanted to have you on to just share a little bit about, enlighten us and our listeners that are even more naive than we are about women's sports and the WNBA for sure. So tell us a little bit about what you do, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, for sure. So I am the photographer for the Los Angeles Sparks, which is the WNBA team located in Los Angeles, California, which is a tough pill to swallow as an Oregon kid who grew up as a Portland Trailblazer fan, because, the Lakers are evil.
That's right.
Fair.
It's an adjustment, and the Sparks wear that purple and gold. So it's a little bit of adjustment, but So I shoot for the team. That means I shoot every home game. I don't travel with them, but I'm shooting every home game that we have. I shoot events. I shoot that they have. I shoot practices sometimes, work with the team directly. In addition to that, I also shoot NBA Today on ESPN a couple times a week with
nice.
Malika Andrews, Chiney Ogwumike, all those guys. And then I also work with individual athletes. So I work with a couple of an ex-NBA player, Josh Childress, who played in the NBA for quite a while. I shoot all of his stuff. And then I shoot a lot of Chiney's stuff and just some individual athletes like that I shoot for on the side as well. So lots of athletes, lots of sports, primarily basketball centric. Yeah.
So did you play basketball? What's your interest in basketball?
Yeah, I did. I did play basketball. I mean, I'm 5'3", and so I did not go on to play, and it's funny because when the first Sparks game I ever shot, I was sitting on the court and I remember looking specifically at Lexi Brown, who's still on our team, and thinking, I don't think she's that much taller than me. Lexi's like 5'10". And she was like one of the shortest people on the team. And I am in fact very short, but yes, I played basketball through high school. But I was always a basketball fan as a kid, specifically the Portland Trailblazers. I had a life-size poster of Clyde Drexler on my wall. Big Trailblazers fan. I still am. And I've just always loved it and just got deeper and deeper and deeper into it. And it kind of led me into a career that I absolutely adore. So
that's awesome. I think, the old saying, if you do something you love, you're never going to work a day in your life. I don't think that's true because it's still hard work to do things you love. But, well, I mean, there's benefits to it for sure. Yeah. Yes. Especially if you're just down there courtside and watching a game you love, that's got to be awesome. So that's really cool. So I'm curious, we had some very ignorant takes on the WNBA. Very Midwestern takes about Caitlin Clark, about the WNBA and the popularity. I loved your response to us, and just what you just continued to just point out, that the WNBA has been growing before Caitlin Clark got there. And I just want to set that record straight from our standpoint of, yes, that is true. And the media has portrayed this as much bigger now as we see the rivalry brewing between those popular players and all that's going on there. But tell us a little bit from your perspective. You've been in the league now, you said, since 2020. So
no, I've only been working for the Sparks for the last 2 years. So I've been shooting other stuff around basketball since 2020.
Gotcha. Okay, I apologize. Yeah.
No,
so in the last 2 years that you've been directly with the WNBA, what is one of the biggest changes that you've seen this league kind of just exponentially grow over the last 2 years?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this last year there was exponential growth, and I'm not taking away from that at all. The draft class was huge. Obviously Caitlin Clark did come in with a huge following. So not to diminish that at all, but you also had people like Cameron Brink, who was the second pick. Rakia Jackson, who was the fourth pick, who we also got. You got Angel Reese, who had that rivalry with Caitlin in college. It was a huge class of rookies coming into the WNBA this season that brought a lot of eyes on the league. But this league has been growing exponentially. If you go back and look, you can find all kinds of charts on Google that show like the growth of the WNBA and how it's just beginning to just arc way up. And I mean, there are things that have been in the works, because things take a while to see, like from when they start working on them to when they actually happen. Obviously that takes a while. And I know there are a lot of misconceptions. And one of the ones that I hear a lot is that, like, oh, well, the WNBA has private jets now, thanks to Caitlin Clark. And that is not accurate. Nneka Ogwumike, who was on the Sparks last year, she's now on the Seattle Storm. And she is the WNBPA president. And I watched her working on this, and this was set to happen this season. It just so happened that also Caitlin Clark came in. Last season when Brittany Griner, when all the stuff happened with her being in Russia. that, there were security issues and things like that when she came back. And so they started to kind of play with that a little bit last season to kind of help with that as well. So this is stuff that's not necessarily happening because of Caitlin, but there's definitely growth that she brings into this league, as well as all these players that are coming in. But yeah, it's growing. I mean, this is the time. If you want to get into women's sports, women's basketball, WNBA, this is the time, because it is going up from here.
That's right.
Yeah, and my ignorant take is just because I'm in Nebraska. We're right next door to Iowa. That's where Caitlin Clark grew up. So that's all we got tired of hearing about it, right? So we were tired of Iowa fans being in our stadiums, but she brought that awareness, and you saw all these young girls just lining up with their parents to get in, just to get to watch her play. It was crazy because she came here, and there's 2-hour lines just to get inside these stadiums. But that's the narrative that we hear is, the media, like you said, just says, well, it's because of her. But no, you're right. The draft class itself is a really good draft class.
And it's, sorry to interrupt, but it's
timing.
It's what you just said too, Dia. It's the fact that there was so many. The volume is huge. I mean, when I think about when the WNBA was just starting, you get the Rebecca Lobos, you get the Lisa Leslies, you get some of that first wave of those pros that were not going overseas to play, but they were playing here in the States. That was huge for the WNBA. Those were huge gets for them. But then when you find out later on, when you read more of this and you understand that they were still going overseas to play in their off season so that they could still make enough money. And as we were talking pre-show, I mean, the money aspect of it is what's changing now, and we're seeing those percentages change. We're hopefully seeing some of that, like as you said earlier. Share a little bit about the culture, whether that's money, whether that's just the atmosphere. One of the things we do on this podcast is we just tell stories, and some of the stories I have of attending games is you can definitely see the culture in the 4 major sports when you go there live in person, right? You go to the NHL, and the NHL is a country club culture. It's the rich are getting richer, and you're going there and you see martinis, you see the rich enjoying a sport of brutality on the ice. Then the very same arena, I got the opportunity to go to watch the Bulls one night, and then the next night we watched the Blackhawks. And the very same arena flipped for culture. So you got the WNBA, the hip hop culture, the NBA, the hip hop culture, all of that going on with the Bulls, and then you flip the script the next night for the Blackhawks in the NHL. So and it's the same thing in the NFL. You get the rednecks drinking their beer on the football field and all that stuff. But tell us a little bit about the culture from that standpoint, but also from a financial standpoint as well.
Yeah, so I think one of the things about the WNBA that I really love, and that I think is something that you don't really see anywhere else, is you do see it in other women's sports, but the WNBA is largely Black women. It's largely LGBTQ women. There's a lot of that in our league that you don't see other places. In men's sports, you don't see a lot of, obviously there's a lot of diversity in athletes in general, but there's not really a men's sport out there where you're dealing with the LGBTQ community. And I think one of the things that's really cool about the WNBA and the fans and the atmosphere is just the inclusivity of it. People, you see such a range of people there. It's not, there's men, there's women, there's older people, there's younger children, and it's just, I don't know how to really fully describe it unless you really experience it, but you can just feel the diversity and see that diversity. And I also, with all the talk about Caitlin Clark and some of the issues that have arisen from that and from all of it is, you start to hear people talk about people who have been fans of the WNBA for years, who are still fans of the WNBA, who start to talk about how it feels now walking into an arena, versus how, like, especially in those situations, I know specifically with Fever fans, with Caitlin Clark fans, there's been some of this. But you hear a lot of people talking about how, like, this has always been such a safe place. It's always felt so safe for us. We've always felt like comfortable and safe. And I think as the league, and this is going to happen, that first of all, there's always been racism. There's always been sexism. This is not new. These are not new issues. But I think with the growth of that, and with, you know, more and more people coming to be fans of the league, you get more of not that, you know, you get more of some of the things that are out there, you know, are just like, some of the messaging and some of the things that fans are doing are just not great. And it's hard. I'm super active on Twitter. Twitter is my go-to for sports, especially. And you watch just like the discourse that happens, and it's heartbreaking, frankly, like just some of the hate and the anger and the vitriol that happens in those spaces. And so I think that a lot of this is growing pains, and I'm not blaming this on one certain person or one certain group or whatever, but that there's growing pains to this. But one of the things about the WNBA that I don't see anywhere else is just the activism, because you're dealing with women, because you're dealing with Black women, because you're dealing with gay Black women. You are dealing with a group of people who has been the minority in everything. And so you have these women that are using their platform, they're taking stands, they're using their voices, and they're doing things that make a difference. There's a really cool documentary on Amazon Prime that I would encourage anybody who's listening to this to go watch. And it talks about what the women did in 2020 to flip a Senate seat, the WNBA. There was an owner in the WNBA who was also held a Senate seat, and she was racist and a little bit hateful and did some not so nice things, and they kind of took it into their own hands and they flipped the Senate, and it was huge. And there's a lot of activism that goes on in this league because of who the league is. And that's really become an identity. If you watch the games, the women will often wear shirts that have messages of activism on them. There's a lot of issues that they're standing up, that they're speaking about, that they're showing up for, in ways that I don't really see that happen in other leagues. And it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Some of that, too, is you're watching a league. I mean, the league, if I got the dates right, 96, 97, I think maybe when they started, somewhere in that range. I could be wrong. But they've kind of grown up, and now you're seeing a league growing up, they're having to deal with social media. Like, as they're not that they're learning, that they didn't know what it was before, because, you know, they didn't know. They're just, like, actively growing with everything. And like you said, the responses and the hate that you see on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it nowadays. I still call it Twitter. X is I don't like it.
Hard habits to break.
Yeah. But you do see that. Even as somebody who doesn't follow the WNBA, you see it in your feed. And that's the media bias that I see is because I'm only seeing the things that the other people that I might follow are telling me this is what the news is about the WNBA. Right. And that's what the ignorant comments happen, right, in our podcast about the perception of what things are happening. So
I have a question kind of as a follow-up to that. That makes total sense. But as a woman who's in an industry that is more, like you're saying, is more activist driven. Now I'm gonna say maybe a hot take, and in no way is this, I don't want to be derogatory at all, but as a woman working in an industry where they're trying to prove themselves, do you think that plays a part in the activism role, as these women don't really care that it's not in other leagues, but women in general have had to fight for everything forever, and this activism approach has been part of their life, so that now they're in a league and an organization that's given them a platform? Does that give them some liberties and some freedom to be who they are and have that freedom to be LGBT and be, you know, a minority and deal with this hate, but deal with it in a confrontational way where the men's sports you hear about the stories of Michael Jordan never got political. You hear the stories of, LeBron kind of shuts down at certain times because he doesn't want to let activism play a primary role. But these women, that's not what it's about. It's about life and survival and these chip on your shoulder. So I say all that to say, first of all, speak to that a minute. But second of all, how does that, both Justin and I have girls, and how does that play for you when you think about girls coming up and training up, empowering our girls today to be active, to be who they are in their own skin? How can the WNBA and men's sports too continue to encourage this, so it's not a chip on a shoulder, but rather the men's sports or those of us coming alongside saying, hey, we see you, you matter, let's do this the right way?
Yeah, there's a lot of parts to this, so let me try to remember it all. So there's a podcast that Sue Bird and Megan Rapinoe do, and I just saw a clip of it today, and I wish I had it with me, but it was Sue Bird talking about this, and she was basically saying, listen, I would have loved to be able to shut up and dribble. Like, I would have loved to do that, but we were forced into this. Like, there's because of who we are, and I feel like I'm going to butcher what she said, so I don't want to try to. But I think that there's an aspect of what you said where it's like, this is innately who we are. And I say we, I'm not in the league, but as women, as Black women, as Black gay women, or gay women in general, I think, there is a lot of fighting that they're having to do to have rights, to have choices, to have things like that. And I think that innately that becomes so much like, you don't want to waste the opportunity that you have to make a difference when you're in that place. And I struggle to speak on this very eloquently because I'm not them. Like, I'm not a player. I'm not Black. I'm not gay. Like, I am a woman, but that's where it stops for me. So I never want to speak for them. And I also think it's important to say, like, I know in the NBA, you are still dealing with a lot of Black men, and they're still fighting a lot of fights too. And I think for a lot of them, they may not be in the position where they feel like they have to be quite as political or whatever. But that's still an element that's there. And I think that we're living in a world that is much more aware of these things, and they're being talked about more openly. And social media is definitely a part of that. I think, before something would happen and it was so like, if it wasn't on the front page of the newspaper or it wasn't on the news, like, people didn't know about it. Whereas now, like, something can happen in some tiny little town in the middle of nowhere, Justin, maybe where you live. and
thanks. The flyover country, thank you.
And where maybe it wouldn't have been news before, now it's all over the place. And I think that so people are becoming, issues that maybe weren't as widely known about or as widely dealt now are at the forefront. And I think, I think, and I may be misinterpreting this, and so I want to be careful about that, but I think Sue Bird's point in that is like, these women are here to play basketball. They came into this league because they love basketball, because they're good at basketball, because they want to make a living playing basketball. They want to be professional basketball players. But it's really, really hard to have a league full of women and not have people talking about that. Not just the league, but you're right, the media, the fans. The media and the fans aren't just talking about basketball. They're talking about everything surrounding it. They're talking about rivalries, and rivalries are good. I like rivalries. I think any sports fan likes rivalries. But the problem becomes when the rivalries they veer away from sports and they turn into Black versus white, gay versus straight.
It turns into hate.
Yeah. And for these players, they respect each other. And now, that's not to say that there aren't, with any sport, there are players within that league that don't like each other, obviously. But the overwhelming feeling and the overwhelming consensus is these women support each other. They have each other's backs. On the court, they're going to fight like hell. But off the court, they are fans of each other. They support each other. They're friends with each other. You know, it's 144 players in this league. They know each other. They've been on teams. There's a lot more turnover in the WNBA than the NBA because the contracts are shorter. So they've been on teams together. There's a lot of support. But the media and the fans love to create these narratives that, you know, then turn into a problem. And I think that that's what we've seen a lot of with Caitlin is, you know, Caitlin is breaking records. She is an amazing athlete. She came in and it took her a couple games to adjust, but it didn't take her long. And she came out there and she had a rookie of the year season. You know, she's one of the best rookies that the WNBA has ever seen. You know, Candace Parker won MVP and rookie of the year in the same year, and Caitlin didn't quite do that. But you know, she's one of the best players that we've ever seen come into this league. And there's a reason that she has as many fans as she does. I think there's several reasons, but one of them is because she's really good at basketball. And I don't think anybody in the league or who follows the league or watches basketball is trying to say that Caitlin Clark isn't good at basketball. But you've got
I never said that. I never said that. Caitlin, if you're listening, I'm sorry.
You've got these narratives where people are, instead of recognizing the fact that, like, hey, we're not saying that Caitlin Clark isn't going to be one of the best players to ever play the game. We're saying, hey, she's a rookie. Give her a minute. We're saying, hey, like, and we're also saying, hey, like, she's one of the best players to play. But so is Asia Wilson. Like, you can have more than one person who's really good. You can have more than one person who's going to be up there as the best players who ever play the game. That's why there's, in the NBA, you see these GOAT debates between, you know, Michael Jordan and LeBron James and whatever. Like, there can be more than one person who people debate, like, is the best ever. And I think anyone who knows anything about basketball and who's paid any attention to the WNBA is not saying that Caitlin Clark is not a very good player, maybe one of the best ever.
No.
So
I think it's just that
these other narratives.
Yeah, I think it's just that when we brought it up on our podcast, is just literally that week was just all about, you know, all of her personal fouls and all these things, and like all these other players are attacking her, and it's really weird though, right? That's the narrative.
It is, because to that point, if you go watch Caitlin, she is aggressive and she fouls and she yells in people's faces and she gets attitude and she does all those things that are part of basketball that all these other women are doing too. And you know, I mean, there are fouls that are not being called on her too. Like there's so many. This isn't.
It's not a new thing.
Isn't picking on Caitlin. She's not the victim in this. And I think that that's what this becomes is. It becomes this whole narrative of like, oh, poor Caitlin, she's not getting. No, like that's not what this is.
No, and that was the thing is we grew up. I mean, we had in Nebraska, we dealt with her for 4 years. Like, I mean, we just watched her in her little antics, right? So I guess it's just fresh with what we hear, and obviously I know that's not what the true narrative is.
Well, and it's all about creating a story. I mean, you think about everything that we're doing. I mean, that's what we do in this podcast. It's about telling a story, and every one of these women have a story to tell, whether it's their you know, their sexual orientation, whether it's their race, whether it's whatever they have a story to tell, and it comes out on the basketball court. And if anybody, I mean, I had a sister who played basketball, and when I hated going to her games because it was like a brawl on the court. It's like, when are you going to shoot the ball, you know? So
I say all the time, like, if you don't like women's basketball, if you're a basketball fan, if you're an NBA fan or whatever, and you say you don't like women's basketball, I don't believe you. I either think you haven't watched it or you don't like women. Because if you watch, seriously, because when you watch women's basketball, it is a great game. Like or you only watch NBA for the dunking.
I was going to say, the WNBA is more fundamentally based watching a game.
But also,
there's more fundamental.
They're also doing things that are not fundamental. They're also getting into it with each other. They're also like, they're aggressive. They're playing better defense than the men, in my opinion. They're doing like this is I should be careful about saying that.
You're okay.
I'm not worried about you.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. That's right. We gotta keep you employed. That's right.
I work with the men too. But it's a great game and it's so much fun. And so I think most of the people who say, "Oh, I don't like the WNBA," well, then you haven't watched it enough to really, because it takes time. You got to get attached. I've been trying for years to become a football fan, and I just am not. It's not because I don't like sports. I love sports. It's not because I don't like football. It's because I'm not attached. I don't have an attachment to players or to a team. When you get attached to a team and you start to become a fan of a team or of a specific player, you're invested. And I think people who say they don't like the women's basketball or don't like the WNBA just haven't given it the time and gotten invested in it, because it is fantastic basketball.
So you just said that if you don't like women's basketball, you either don't like basketball or you don't like women. Since you don't like football, does that mean you just don't like men in tights?
Men in tights.
I mean, yeah,
it's fair.
There could be an argument for that.
Okay.
No,
I know I don't look good in tights, so
I do actually like football. I'm just not invested. Like, I haven't been able to get invested in a team.
I hear you. Yeah. Well, go ahead, Justin.
Wow, I was just gonna. I don't know. I was just gonna ask another follow-up question about just when you're shooting the team, right, and you're taking pictures of the team during action, and there is stories that you tell through photography, right? You can tell a story from your pictures.
Yeah.
And outside of the court, how hard is that to make sure you're getting the right story from your pictures? Like, how hard is that as a photographer to get the right narrative out there?
I love this question. So I started out in the photography industry in weddings. I shot weddings for over a decade. And there's a way that you shoot weddings. When you're shooting a wedding, you've either been in a wedding or been to a wedding or been married, I'm sure. So you know what it's like to be at a wedding. And when you're shooting a wedding from a wedding photographer's perspective, your whole job is to tell the story of the day. Now, granted, there's obviously posed pictures. You're posing the bride and groom together. You're posing the bridal party, whatever. But the majority of the photos that you're taking are documenting what's going on around you. It's your job as the photographer to tell the story of that day. And so you're watching for these in-between moments. You're watching for the moment that the bride and groom kind of sneak away, or you're watching for the mom who's wiping her tears or whatever. You're watching for those things. And I think that having that experience and having been having trained myself to watch for things like that, I think that's probably the biggest thing that sets me apart as a sports photographer now is I love a good action shot. Like, I love a good, whatever action shot in the middle of a game. But what I love more is the bench when something happens on the court and they freak out and they react, or the reaction from the player who just made a big play or who just missed a big one. Like, those are the things that where a lot of photographers' cameras go down is when I'm going up and I'm looking for, okay, what's happening in between. To me, the game is obviously crucial and it's a big part of telling the story. But so much of telling a story of a team is the stuff going on around it. We do tunnel walk-ins. If you ever see the NBA does this as well. And I think a lot of other sports do it now too. As the athletes are coming to the game, we photograph them. And one of the things that's really cool, like when you're shooting men with the NBA, they don't stop. They walk through the tunnel. You have a second to get that shot. With us, those women stop, they pose, they look at the pictures, they see if they like them, they take some more. They maybe they want to take one in this hallway instead. Like, we get a whole photo shoot. But what also happens is the other are in time. So then they're seeing each other and they're complimenting each other's outfits and they're saying things, and the interaction that you're getting those are my favorite pictures, and I feel like the interaction and the relationships that happen on and off that court are one of the biggest parts of telling the story of a team. And so for me, it's all about the in-between things. It's all about the relationships between the players and the players and the coaches, the players and the fans. It's those relationships and those in-between things, I think, that really help to tell a full story of what's going on.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I love that question, Justin. Thank you for answering that, Dia. I appreciate it. Just a personal question for down the road. Do you still shoot weddings?
I prefer not to.
Okay.
I just shot a wedding for a coach, an NBA coach that I know, in August. And then last November I shot Chene had a wedding photographer, but I got to shoot, Chene Ogumake's wedding. Like, she hired me to come out and shoot just her and like her people around her. And that was really cool. So I do it occasionally for people that I know, but it's not something that weddings are hard and time.
What if we promise a basketball game that breaks out during a wedding?
I mean,
I can make a lot. No, that's not. Well, I mean, there's a wedding on the books that we know of somebody soon, right?
No comment.
No comment.
Yeah, well, Dia, I really appreciate you talking about this topic with us and coming on the show. Thank you for your time. Just now, the next question I have for you, because you have connections in this world as well.
Yeah,
we're throwing around ideas for our first sponsor, and we're trying to figure out how do we get this taken care of. I mean, last week we had my kids on the show, and so we had the idea of Red Bull and different things like that. Any advice for new podcasters? What can we do to continue this to not just become a mundane thing that we're doing?
I mean, I think, and this is not just for podcasting. I just think in general, when you're doing anything, I think that being really true to who you are and what makes you you is so important. I think, the relationships you build along the way, being genuine, and I think that's the biggest thing. For the example of sponsors, like if you go out and find a sponsor that's like, I don't know. I don't know you well enough to know, but like for me, if I got the NFL to sponsor me, it would make no sense. Like that's not me. Yeah, that's not my, that wouldn't even work, but it was the best example I could come up with at the moment. But yeah. I guess
there goes our shot at WNBA sponsorship, Justin.
We trashed it. We lost the sponsorship already.
Maybe this is the point where you become WNBA fans. 10 years down the road, you're going to be like, when did you decide you liked the WNBA? And it's going to be like, well, this one time, this girl came on and convinced us.
That's right. She did her job. She did
her job. That's right. All right. No, but we really appreciate you coming on and sharing everything and setting us straight. Maybe more me, because
listen, I think it's always important to be open to learning new things, and I think it's always important to be able to acknowledge when you're wrong, and to be open to learning from people who know more about the topic than you do. I know this is something I am always trying to listen to the people around me too, because I'm not in the WNBA. And even though I'm around it, like my voice is not the important one in this. And I think that, there's a lot of hard conversations that come with this stuff. And I think being willing to have those conversations and be open to learning is the biggest thing you can do. So,
yeah. I have one follow-up question. This comes from our pre-show. My apologies, we're going long, but my question to you is, okay, so you grew up in the church, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we all grew up in the church. How did growing up in the church, start your mindset about what you interact with and see in the WNBA? Like, how hard was that to kind of try to be like, oh, but this is not what I was taught or grew up in, or potential. I don't know what your opinions were, but obviously we hear about growing up in the church and being active in a church. You there's a perception, right, of things, and you can't be around. How hard was that for you to make that change? Or hey, it wasn't, because these are all God's people and we love them anyways, right?
Yeah, I think that's an elephant in the room when you're talking about people who have grown up in church and then are in environments where maybe the church has not, historically been so supportive, for lack of a better way of putting that. I think that I have always cared about people. I've always cared about people around me, whether they were like me or not, whether we were similar or not. But I also think that when you grow up in essentially a bubble, you have perceptions based off of what you're exposed to. What you're exposed to and what you're taught is what creates your worldview. And when you're young, those things are very much in a bubble. It's very much your parents, your teachers, your church, your friends, the people that are directly around you. And when you're surrounded by people who all believe and think the same things, you grow up believing and thinking those same things as well. And I think as you get older and as your bubble starts to essentially expand because you're exposed to more people, you're exposed to more things, it becomes your responsibility. And as an adult, you're no longer reliant on your parents, on your church, on your friends, on your school to create a worldview and to create what you believe and what you don't. Now, as an adult who has access to information, who has access to other people, who has the ability to listen to people and to grow and to learn, it's now your responsibility to be open to what I just said, essentially, to the idea that, hey, maybe I'm wrong. Hey, maybe the world's bigger than just my bubble. Maybe I need to be open to other perspectives, and maybe I need to acknowledge the fact that I'm not always right, and I need to hear other people and grow and learn. And for me, I had, I guess, a come to Jesus moment where my world flipped upside down, and I started to question everything that I had ever been taught and everything that I had ever learned, and had to and for me, what happened for me was I broke everything down and just started from the bottom and started to build my way back up. And what I have discovered is that I don't know anymore what I believe or what I think, but that I think it's important to listen to the people around me, that I think that, equality is important. I think that you should not be defined or labeled or cornered based off of your race, based off of your sexual identity, based off of your who you love or what you want in life. I think that those things are so. I think that growing up in the church, there's a lot of black and white. And what I have found as an adult in my own life is there's really a lot of room for, I'm not even going to say gray, I'm just going to say color. Like there's a lot of room for more than just black and white. And I think there are very few things in life that really truly are black and white. And I think that people are complex, and it's really hard to narrow it down to this or that, this or that. I think that a lot of things are on a spectrum, and we need to leave room for that. For me, I have a lot of wonderful, amazing people who are different ethnicities, who are different sexual orientations than I am. And I think that they're amazing people, some of the best people I've ever met. So for me, what I was taught and how I grew up obviously will always play a role in how I see the world. But I think that my world has expanded immensely. And now these people and these voices have become a very important part of my life as well.
Yeah. And that's a good way to round back to an earlier question we asked about, teaching our kids as a,
I didn't get to that.
Yeah, no, we're good. No, but you literally answered the question without realizing it. The things that we're picking up as adults and now that we're parents, and back to that question about what we're teaching our kids and teaching the girls, right? About being true about themselves. I mean, what you just summarized is like a perfect example of like what we want to show love to everybody, and how our kids can realize that too. So
I have an 11-year-old daughter. I have two sons as well, but I have an 11-year-old daughter, and it's so important to me that, one, she knows she can do whatever she wants to do, that she's not limited by the fact that she's a woman or she will be a woman. She's not limited by that she's, that, and I think too, just that one of the things that I love about the WNBA is it really does empower women. Like you look around, these women are strong, and you're watching them do really incredible things. And I want my daughter to grow up knowing that she can be a strong, independent woman, that she doesn't have to do things, to appease men. I want her to grow up knowing that she can choose what she wants to be, and she can pursue that. And I think that, I think as parents, we always want to, even if I have great parents who raised me really well, I still want to be better than them. I still want to do better than them. I still want to raise my kids better than they did. And I think, as we grow and we learn and the world around us evolves and changes and we are exposed to that, we have to do better for our kids so that they grow up in a better world, and so on and so forth. So for sure.
Let me just touch on that too. I know we're way over, but it's worth it tonight.
Worth it. Oh, yeah, 100% worth it. Yeah.
But as somebody, again, who's got a teenage daughter as well, who's grown up in that same bubble that you referenced there, not only is it important for them to know that they are able to be whoever they want to be and do whatever they want to do, I think it's important too for our daughters, especially that, mine was raised in the church as well and raised in that bubble of being dad as a pastor and all of that stuff, that they can do things in spite of the fact of the bubble they grew up in.
Yeah.
And they can be whoever they want to be. There's freedom in that relationship with Christ, more so than what you just said, the black and the white that we're taught. And I know in talking to my daughter in recent days, that's just a huge benefit that we've been able to see in the last few years of kind of branching away from those traditional black and white, and it's only this way. Now there's certain, we don't have to go into a theological debate here of anything, but you're right. There's so much more inclusivity to this conversation because, again, as we talked about with the Olympics, I mean, Jesus would have sat with every one of these people that we've referenced and every category of these people that we've referenced tonight. And there's no debating that. So I think it's important that our kids know that. And we continue to, even from our limited worldview at times, continue to spread them out. Like you just said, I've said that numerous times in my own life. My parents have been great to me, still are great to me. And I'm like, I still want to be better.
Yeah.
And I think we got to teach our kids that too. They can be better than us and they should be.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much. One last thing before we go and let you go. I don't know if you can do this with your job or not, but we've switched one of our predictions, and the others are football, so I won't have you touch on those. But we just know that the Connecticut Sun just beat the Lynx tonight to go into the finals for the WNBA. Yeah. Can you predict a winner for maybe the whole series? We're going to predict game one, New York Liberty, Connecticut Sun, on Thursday night. But can you pick a winner of the WNBA finals this year for us?
Yeah, I'm going for the Liberty. I've been rooting for them from the beginning. So I mean, not the beginning. I was rooting for us.
I was going to say, keep your job. Keep your job.
Hang on.
I was rooting for us, and then I was simultaneously rooting for the Storm because NECA's on the Storm, but they went out the first round. So the Liberty were actually my WNBA team before I started working for the Sparks. They were the team that I became a WNBA fan. That was the team that I was my team. And so now I am very immersed in the Sparks, and they are definitely my team. But the Liberty still has a special piece in my heart, and I just think they're the better team. I think they're going to win.
Well, you've heard it here first, folks, from the WNBA expert, Dia Miller with the LA Sparks. She's picking the New York Liberty to win the WNBA finals. And so thank you, Dia, for being with us tonight. It's been a joy and a pleasure to talk to you. Keep up the good work. And now I just have one last cheap plug. Please, please, please just share us when you're done. If this helps, we would really greatly appreciate that. So thank you for joining us so much. We had a blast tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. So we just spent the last 40 plus minutes with Dia Miller, and what an incredible time that was. We could sit and talk to her for probably days about so many different things. So thank you, Dia, for being on with us. And she picked, if we ended that segment with her picking the WNBA finals winner in the New York Liberty. So we switched up our games to predict this week, Justin. Last week, just to give a breakdown, Justin, you had another good week, 4-1. You're at 18-12. If you're betting games with Justin, keep it up. You're winning. I was 2-3 last week. 14-16. You better, if you're betting games with me, just stop. Just don't even listen to these picks. But even worse than that were my kids. They went 1-4, just like Nate did a week ago. So not good. But some games to predict. Let's just start with that game that Dia picked. I know you don't follow it. We've picked only football games, but I switched it up for this week. So the Connecticut Sun just won tonight. They're going to play the New York Liberty in Game 1 of the WNBA Finals on Thursday night. Who you got in Game 1, Justin?
I'm going to go with the expert who picked the Liberty because I don't think I can be wrong if it's somebody who sits and watches and is actually a true fan. I don't even know how long the Sun has been around. Liberty's been there since day one.
Yeah.
Connecticut, were they
no, they weren't an inaugural team, but they've been a historically good team lately, so that makes sense. But the Liberty have a Oregon connection too, and so that makes sense for us. I'm going to go with Liberty as well to win Thursday night in Game 1.
Yeah.
So you had to suggest another local game for me, not so much for you, but we'll go back to college football. Number 2 versus number 3, we got the Ohio State University coming into Eugene to play the Ducks of Oregon, number 3 ranked Oregon. Ohio State is favored by 3.5 on the road in Eugene, Autzen Stadium. Justin, I know you have some take here on this game. What are you thinking here?
This is gonna be my pulpit pick. So a team who puts the word "the" in front of it, lowercase, OSU, the Ohio State, sounds like a cult. I don't know if I can pick people who follow cult things and are part of cults. And knowing some Ohio State fans, man, they get some iffy times. I am going to go Oregon. I don't know what color jerseys they're going to wear this week because they change it up every 5 seconds. I don't even know if it's a night. Is it a night game?
I'm not sure.
If it's a night game, man, that's a game changer in Oregon. Because they are. I'm looking real quick. This is good radio, right?
Well, while you're looking at that, I'll just give my pick. I mean,
go ahead.
I have to win. I'm picking this only because I need a win. And
6:30.
It's a 6:30 game.
6:30 game.
That means 6:30 local for us or 6:30 to you. That would be a 4:30 game for us.
Yeah. It's the NBC night game. So it's NBC's night game.
Okay. So it's going to be one of those hybrid moments. Yeah.
And Roddy. It's that Oregon's going to be pretty lit.
Yeah. I'm gonna take Ohio State just because I need a win against you. So that's the only reason. I know it.
Jeez, you're gonna make me puke in my shoes.
And as a Beaver fan, it's hard for me to pick the Ducks. Let's just be real. So
you also back in the day wore Sooner gear too.
That's true.
Yeah,
moving on.
Moving forward.
we have the highest point spread of the week is against Mississippi State once again. Mississippi State going on the road in SEC play at number 5 Georgia. 32-point game. Georgia's favored by 32 points over Mississippi State. So I'm going to go first on this one. This one is hard for me. I know the SEC has been under the microscope lately just from the lack of consistency and some teams faltering. Conference play is tough. And when you're in the SEC, which is about 26,000 teams right now, and all that's going on there, you just never know which team's going to show up. I don't know that Georgia keeps the gas on. I think they dominate the game, but 32 points, that's over 4 touchdowns. I'm going to take Mississippi State to cover on the points here.
Yeah, and unless Nick Saban made a comment like he made about Vanderbilt, like, hey, you can, every game's hard unless you go to Vanderbilt or you're playing against Vanderbilt. I know this is at Georgia, in between the hedges. I think Georgia, now that they've seen something that's happened to what Alabama went through. I think it's their time. They have to step on the pedal now to make that run. I know it's a 12, team playoffs and all that stuff, but man, I think they need to set themselves up in the SEC. So I actually think Georgia's going to cover this. I'm going to go with it. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Well, that gets us two that are opposite. That's good. Let's go to the NFL. These two, I said we picked their preseason games as we were getting started here. And I thought, we're never going to pick a Denver game or a Cowboy game the rest of the year. But we did pick the Cowboys a couple weeks ago, or last week maybe.
Last week.
They're intriguing, and especially this week again, you have a conference game or a divisional game with the Chargers at the Broncos. Chargers are favored by 3. Harbaugh's taking his Bolts into Denver. Denver has won. They've started winning. They're second in the division now, behind the Chiefs. They're a winning record right now, 3-2. Chargers coming in. I'm going to go first on this one too, just because I don't want you to have to pick my team first.
Go Donkeys. Got it.
It's so hard, but I'm a fan, and I'm like you with the Huskers. I'm a homer. I'm picking the Broncos to win the game. It may be a 1-point win, but they're already the underdogs at home. It's hard to go into Mile High and win, and so I'm going Broncos.
Yeah, and if Bo Nix is allowed to talk back to his coach like he does on the sidelines, and Russell Wilson wasn't allowed to talk back, and he was shipped out. So I think the Broncos. Dude, I don't know. I don't like cheating Harbaugh. I mean, he cheats wherever he goes. So I like his brother better. So we're gonna go. I'm gonna go with Broncos, okay. And they're actually gonna win by 10.
Okay, so we got Broncos there. The next game, the last game we're picking this week, another NFL game, another one close to our hearts. The Detroit Lions favored by 3.5 on the road at your Dallas Cowboys, who have struggled all year. Who you got? Cowboys, Lions favored.
Dude, I was having a text message with my buddy, and I said, "Did you see that comeback on the other night on Sunday Night Football?" It turned into Monday morning football too. But he's like, "No, I can't watch this team." And he's a more diehard Cowboys fan. He's like, "This is up and down Cowboys team. They don't know what they're." I get it, but Lions though, man, that team,
they're legit.
They are legit. But away from home, away from home. Fast team, you know how the old adage, a fast team, you play slower on grass, but you're playing indoors, so it's like playing at their stadium. I think the Cowboys win, but they don't cover.
Well, the Cowboys aren't favored. So.
Oh, yeah. Excuse me.
So the Cowboys, you got Cowboys?
Yeah, I'm gonna pick the Cowboys.
Okay, I'm going Lions. I'm catching up this week. I'm going to catch up. And
Dak Prescott's not going to be he's not going to have that stat this week where he threw interceptions in the same game on 2 different days.
Right.
Yeah, that was a cool stat.
Yeah, it was a cool stat. That had to have been. I know, like our competition out there is, and they talk about the LeBron stat of the day. That's got to be a LeBron stat of the day. The only quarterback to throw interceptions in the same game on 2 different days.
Yeah,
that's pretty good. So, yep. Cool. Well, that's our picks for the week. We'll see how that turns out for us next week when you check in with us next week. So let's wrap this thing up tonight, Justin. 3 days look ahead. What you got going on this weekend?
This weekend, not much. My wife had a surgery this week, so we're waiting for her to get home, and so a lot of recovery and family time around the house, and kind of seeing how the things look moving forward. Son's got a football game. It's fall break for school, so the kids will be out on Friday through Tuesday. So probably a lot of family time. Like you said, we both love our family time, and we don't want to miss that for anything. So other than that, no Husker football game this weekend. So which means I'll probably end up actually doing the things that I need to be doing around my house. Finally, so the honeydew list maybe start going. So what about you, man? Anything exciting?
Yeah, I got a busy weekend this weekend. I got my kids this weekend, so that'll be fun and exciting. We're going to a birthday party, so that'll be fun. Lots of family time and with people I love. And so, again, like I said, say it every week. I'm never going to complain about those moments. So, also getting ready for a big fundraising gala for work next week. So it seems like everybody and their dog is off of school this Friday, but I was going to try to get off, but I can't because we got to get the carpets cleaned at our office. So I got to help as the only man who works at this office. I got to help move furniture. So, but yeah, it'll be a good weekend for sure. I'm looking forward to just the fun and it'll be busy, but it'll be fun. It'll be awesome.
That's awesome. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to my weekend. So
awesome. Well, great. It was great to have Dia with us tonight, and it was good to see you and talk to you again and share some stories with you. Thanks for joining us, and for all of you that joined us tonight, thank you again. And we hope that you'll share it with your friends, give them some comedic relief, and this week give them some great insight from one of our woman listeners and somebody who knows what she's talking about. So thank you again, Dia Miller from the LA Sparks, and just from Justin and BJ. Here's to a lack of communication of irrelevant age news. We'll see you next time.
See ya.